I think we're in for another fun episode because when you get to talk to these folks before the record button gets hit, you learn a lot. And we all learn that sometimes we've had one of those days, and everyone's gone through it. And I can't wait to talk to this guy. He's got a brand new EP, his debut EP, Angels. By the time this episode drops, it will be out, and you need to check it out wherever you listen to music. Let's welcome in the country rocker, Chuckie Brown.
Thanks so much for having me, man. Psyched to be here.
Well, I appreciate it, man. And your music is when we get into it here in a little bit, you'll see why maybe that intro kind of makes a ton of sense because life is very interesting. I will say.
Sure is. It sure is, to say the least.
But this show is about having conversations, and it is bar conversations, so that means you got to have a good drink. I don't have anything from up in your neck of the woods necessarily, so I figured I was like, well, let me just grab something I've enjoyed lately. Little Wheel Horse Double Oak Bourbon. You got anything good tonight? What are you sipping on?
I'm a simple man. I just go on Jameson.
That's a good one.
Can't go wrong for me anyway. I'm also not like a connoisseur, so it's like, just give me some whiskey and I'm happy. It's fine.
Well, I mean, Irish whiskey makes sense from where you're from. So I mean, you're not from Scotland, but you're pretty close in the U.S.
True. It feels like that sometimes in the Northeast, for sure.
Now, you mentioned you got a little Jameson. Do you prefer whiskey, beer? I mean, what's kind of the go-to if you got to choose?
I'm not even much of a huge drinker anymore. But when
Behaving yourself,
it's a whiskey when I do drink. Whiskey on the rocks. That's it. I keep it simple.
Now, do you have like any pre-show rituals where you got to have like a certain drink or do something beforehand?
Yeah, but it's like boring singer stuff where it's like,
hot tea,
hot tea with honey and like lozenges and stuff like that. It's not like cool rock star stuff.
Well, you got to keep the vocal cords warmed up.
Yeah. Just a hot tea.
Now, did you have that same routine when you played hockey?
What's funny is like when I played hockey my senior year, I got into this ritual of just having a couple slices of cheese pizza before the game, which normally you would think that's not really a pregame meal, and it's not, but it relaxed me, and it was like 2 hours before the game. You got time to digest, so used to just rock some pizza, and hey, it worked out okay. So
I was gonna say I've heard. I mean, all athletes I think are superstitious, but hockey players, I mean. It's NHL playoff time. The beards are out until you get eliminated. Like, I mean, there's some weird things that y'all do.
I was a goalie too, so like we have a reputation for being extra weird, which I feel like I live up to. So yeah, I definitely had a lot of rituals and superstitions. I won't bore you with too many of them, but definitely a superstitious guy for sure.
Well, and I was gonna say, I mean, we're talking music, but you grew up, I guess, more of an athlete, and obviously, like I said, playing hockey. So, I mean, what was that like? I mean, was it just hockey and sports back then, or what was life like?
Yeah, so I would say I grew up. Hockey was my main thing, but and I was more of an athletic guy, but I was never really into sports. Like. I played hockey, and I played in college. I played a little bit of semi-pro after for like a hot minute. But I was always more like I loved hockey and I loved goaltending. But I started playing drums in like 5th grade. I was always into just like 90s rock and skateboarding and just like other stuff, So I was kind of like the weirdo in the hockey locker room. Weirdo. But yeah, and then I always did both. And then I was playing on a junior team in Texas when I was like 19. Couldn't bring my drum set, so I was like, okay, I'll buy a cheap acoustic guitar. I bought like the cheapest guitar you could, it was like $60 on guitarcenter.com. It's like the whole package deal. Just taught myself some chords, started singing. It was pretty terrible at that point, and just kind of went from there. Yeah.
I love that. Also, you don't hear. Well, it's kind of like the guy that you talk to, and you're like, I decided to do the bass guitar, and you're like, but who does the bass guitar? Who goes after being a goalie? Like, I mean, who wants to have pucks hit at them? Like, I mean.
That's a great question. Yeah, it's like I was, I played baseball for like 2 or 3 years. I was the catcher. Yeah,
I'm sensing a pattern.
I know, right? It's like I just like projectiles flying at my head, I guess. And it's funny because I'm kind of naturally more of an introvert, but everything I pick is like the spotlight. It's like singer, goalie, things that like are a lot of pressure, which I don't know what that says about me, but yeah. So here I am.
Hey, I was gonna say you might be handling it all very very well. So you
Trying.
must know something. So you mentioned you had the drum set when you were like in fifth grade. So were you like around music growing up? Like how did music kind of come part of your life then?
Yeah, so I have an older brother. He played the piano growing up. Um, my mother played some music. My father was more of the athlete. Um, and yeah, like I think I just kind of listened to like, my brother was 4 years older than me, and so like I just wanted to like impress him. So I would listen to the rock music he would listen to, and I would try to learn the drum parts. And yeah, I think then I went into high school. I actually went to boarding school and started a band with some friends, and
Rock
yeah,
band.
rock band. Yeah,
I knew it. Yeah,
yeah,
everyone's got to have a rock band. I feel like.
yeah, yeah. Of course. Yeah, so it just went from there. So I've kind of always had music in my life, but I've never considered myself as like a music kid when I was growing up. I didn't learn the theory till much later. I didn't, I wasn't like that. It was more just kind of an emotional thing for me. I didn't really learn the technical stuff of music, and I'm still learning it. So that's kind of an ongoing thing.
Well, and you talk about kind of like that music you grew up on. Obviously, having older siblings, kind of into what they listen to. You got your parents. So, what music did you grow up on? Because I'm guessing from the sounds of it, if you got family members, everything, it's an eclectic mix.
It's totally, yeah, it's all over the place. So, I mean, my first memories of music was just like pop radio. At that time it was, I grew up 90s, so Phil Collins and like I don't know, just all this radio pop, and the Disney movies were huge. So like when I was like 6 or 7 years old, I was singing all these Disney songs. And then yeah, like the first thing that I got into was like Metallica and Smashing Pumpkins and Megadeth and like rock. And then kind of later I got into some pop like Maroon 5, and and then eventually I got into country. It's just I've kind of, I'm kind of musically homeless at this point. I just like songs. That's really what it is. It's not even like, oh, I like this genre. Like I can like any genre. It's really just like, does that song move me in some way? Yeah, so that's kind of how I think of it now.
Well,
When I was growing up, it was much more like it wasn't even like you liked rock. It was like you like this type of rock. Like I don't like pop punk. I like, post grunge. So there was all those subcategories, but now I'm just like, if it sounds good, I'm into it.
now I'm gonna date myself. Did you grow up with like a CD player, that portable CD player,
I mean,
iPod? Where were you at on the spectrum? Because
fear of dating myself as well. I may have you beat there. I had a Walkman, so
ooh, you
yeah,
might be yeah. We're not far off, but
and I had a
yeah.
Discman.
Nice.
Yeah, I upgraded it at a certain point. Oh yeah, they're probably back. I'm in the basement right now. They're probably in storage somewhere. Yeah, I had all of it. I had the cassettes. I had the CDs. I was very early to music. Like I would be at my bus stop in like third grade, like listening to like rock music in my walk.
See, I didn't have that yet. I came onto it a little bit later, but I had the portable CD. I also had the car that you had to have you'd have your CD player, but it had to have the cassette like
Right.
set up to play in the car.
Yeah,
That was my high school days.
yeah, good times, the glory days.
Absolutely. And you talk about growing up, near Boston, the Northeast. What impact did that have on you? Because I'm guessing, growing up kind of in the suburbs of Boston, like stuff comes through, obviously up there, but it's not like it's Texas where you're like, oh, you got Texas country, or maybe the grunge scene out in the Northwest. So what was it like growing up in Boston and in the Northeast?
As far as music, or just in general, or
Both.
both? Yeah, I mean, it's a gritty place, I guess. Like it's cold, like obviously. So, I do think that does something to your psyche. I just moved back to the Northeast. I was in LA for like almost 13 years, And that does something to your psyche too when it's like sunny every day and you just walk outside and the coldest it gets is like 65 and you're like, oh, I gotta put on a sweatshirt. Um, yeah, but when you're shoveling your car every morning and stepping in a puddle and you start your day like that gives you a certain attitude.
Hmm.
And I played hockey with a lot of guys from like, if you've ever seen Goodwill Hunting, it's like those guys. Like, I played in Boston a lot. I'm not from Boston, but I played with a lot of guys from Boston and just, being in the locker room with that mentality, it puts a certain rough edge to you, let's say. Um, but I would say like going to boarding school, I met kids from like we had students from all over the world, exchange students. We had kids from who had scholarships to go. We had kids who were wealthy, like all different economic backgrounds. So I just learned how to get to the root of somebody and something, right? So I think that bled into like how I listen to music, which is like what's being said and do I like it or not? Like get past all the, oh, that's country or that's metal, or it's like, just get to the truth of the matter. And I think, yeah, the no BS Northeast just taught me how to like cut to the heart of something.
Well, and I was gonna say, you talk about, like at the start of the show, we mentioned you played hockey and did that for a good while. When did you decide to put up the skates, hang up the gear bag and
Yeah.
go maybe for music?
Yeah. Hang up the skates. I remember my Facebook post announcing I was hanging up the skates. Right when I got, so after college, I signed with a pro team. It was in the CHL, which is a few levels below the NHL. And I got cut after like a month. And, that hockey had been so up and down for me. And at that point, I had been in bands in college and I had been writing stuff. And my passion for music had really been growing. And I'd been playing hockey for as long as I could remember. And I felt like the writing was kind of on the wall. It's like, okay, maybe I could jump on with another team and bounce around on a bus for a couple more years or something. Or I could try this totally new thing that I'm really passionate about that feels fresh. So yeah, it was kind of like right after I got cut, I think before I even got on the plane to fly home, I was like, all right, I'm going to go for music. Instead of being like, oh, I'll just get a job, like a normal job and career, I was like, oh, I'll just continue dreaming. Um,
What better
yeah,
time?
no, I mean, just how I am, like I get really passionate about something and I chase it down. And for better or worse, sometimes worse, pretty often worse, but also it's been a great ride. And yeah, so I don't know. I think I answered your question. I don't know if I did.
Well, I was gonna say, I mean, it's always interesting because I feel like there's a moment in time for every artist, whether they've loved music all their life or not, where you're like, oh, maybe this is what I want to try. So did you have like, obviously you said, hey, let me go chase this dream. Was there a moment along that path where you were like, hey, I think this could be the right path. Let me see. Let's go down it even further, because it's one thing to kind of like dip your toe in it
Yeah,
and play in bands and stuff, but it's another to like
yeah.
really give it a go.
I think when I thought of my whole life up to that point, and I would remember myself like in class in high school, writing lyrics on notebooks, even as a drummer before I started writing songs, and being in my goalie helmet, humming melodies and trying to remember this melody so I could tell my guitar player later, like, let's write this song. And even like before I even knew how to skate, I was singing in the house, and so whether it's a right path or it's just like that was another thing that I had inside of me. And I think hockey was something that my father was big into sports and hockey, and he kind of fostered that when I was young. And there wasn't really anyone saying like, hey, you should do music. Like, it was just kind of like, hey. So that was very much my own thing. And I think that's why I gravitate to it a little more, because it was like I came to it all on my own. And I just even when I've tried to walk away from it, I keep this voice that's just like, go back, you know.
Stick with it.
Yeah, stick with it, or just like, yeah, keep going. Not even keep pursuing, just like, you got to do it. You got to sing, you got to write, you got to play. Like, there's no turning it off. So I was kind of like, well, it's going to be in my life, so I might as well just try to make the most of it, you know?
Well, and you, along the way, you kind of did some different things. You were doing some cover band stuff and some bands in
Yeah.
Boston. What was that like? I mean, I'm guessing that was kind of where you were like, okay, there could be something here.
You're right, actually. Yeah, so I had never really performed as a singer. I did, a few open mics in college and stuff. A lot of people didn't even know I sang. And then I reconnected with a good friend of mine after college. We started doing some acoustic gigs just in bars. And then I joined like a cover band in Boston that was like full out, 5-piece band, like rock band type deal. It was so much fun, man. Like it's still some of the most fun I've had, just playing clubs in Boston where there's no pressure. You're playing to a bunch of drunk people. It's not your songs. The songs are already proven, like they're already smash hits, so you just play them. You don't have to bring in a crowd. It's all the stuff that comes with being an artist. It's not there. So I had an awesome time, and I think that allowed me to just feel what that rush on stage feels like, because there's a rush when you're playing goalie and you're in front of a big crowd, you make a huge save and the whole crowd goes crazy, and it's a very addicting like feeling. And I remember the first time ever performing to a big crowd that was really into the show and being like, this is great. Yeah, I got to do this. So the cover band, I think, pushed me over the edge to be like, all right, maybe you should actually keep chasing that.
Well, and that led you from the Northeast, like you said, to someplace much warmer, where, in the Northeast, 65 is shorts and a T-shirt, and maybe where you headed was a coat because it was cold. So
Yeah.
how impactful was it moving out to, Los Angeles and kind of figuring things out there?
Basically, like moving out to LA, I think, a little bit naive, a little bit rose-colored glasses of like, just, head in the clouds dreamer, and I think being there for 12 years, I really just grew as a person, grew as an artist, being around a bunch of creative people who have all moved to LA to pursue a dream, whether it's music or acting or comedy or whatever, it forces you to up your game and assess what you're doing, and really get to the root of like, what do you want to say? What do you want to do? Who are you as an artist? These are always ongoing questions, I suppose. But yeah, I think it just kind of forced me. It's like anything, like back in hockey. It's like when you go to a select tournament and you're playing with all the kids who are really serious. It reminded me of that, where it's like, all right, now I'm with all the people who really live and breathe this stuff, and really want to make this their life. So it was a great experience. We had a lot of ups and downs, but I definitely wouldn't trade it.
Well, and for you going out there now, when you're making music, you talked about being a drummer. When did you kind of like shift gears from behind, kind of part of the band to, in front leading
Yeah,
the band? When did that switch happen?
yeah. It wasn't an immediate shift. I think I always wanted to be. Like I said, I sang as a kid, and I didn't sing for a while, and then I remember at boarding school, I had a friend who was a great singer, so he was the singer of our band. And I just remember always looking at him being like, "Oh man, that's where the fun is at." You know, Drums is great, but I think yeah, at high school we started writing songs as a band. I had a lot of ideas. I wanted to be able to sing them. So when I was in that year playing hockey in Texas and I bought the guitar, I was like, I'm going to learn how to sing. And from there, it was probably 3, 4, 5 years before I actually got up on stage. I really kind of took my time learning how to sing, and yeah, it took a little while. It took a couple years before I really had the stones to get up there and like sing in front of somebody. And then after that, it took me a few years to really accept that, like, oh, I'm a singer. Like even sometimes still, I think of myself more as a musician or a drummer or a guy who sings, as opposed to like a singer. So, but yeah, it took a couple years for sure.
Well, and I read too where, when it comes to music and kind of what you're hoping to do, your goal is simple. It's write honest songs that make people feel seen. Why is
Yeah.
that kind of your goal and kind of maybe what guides you?
I think that's because it's always what I gravitated towards, and it's kind of, yeah, it's like who I am. Like I wasn't, like I said, I didn't grow up as a trained singer in music schools and music camps, and like I'm just very like, I play guitar, but I play some cowboy chords. I like I'm not like Mr. Berkeley School of Music, but my passion level is high. Like, so I listen to music. I feel music. Um, and yeah, I just kind of feel kind of everyman about it. It's just, and so I felt like what I was saying earlier with getting to LA and figuring out who you are as an artist. It took me a while to find that. I wanted to be in different types of bands that I liked, and I wanted to emulate that. And then it was like, yeah, but that's not you. Like that's them. So you go through that as an artist, where you have to find you, and that takes time, and it's really hard. Well, not for everybody. It was hard for me, because it's scary. You're really putting yourself out there. So yeah, took a little time.
Well, and you talk about that kind of one finding your sound, kind of feeling comfortable with it. But what's it also like creating music that's rooted in real life experiences, which I'm guessing that's sometimes your real life experiences, those
Yeah.
kind of things, and then sharing some of that and the emotions that go along with it.
Yeah, I mean, it's cathartic, on some level. It's oh, here's my baby crying in the other room. I don't know if you can hear that. There he goes. But yeah, I mean, it's scary. I think though that's all I knew how to do, even in the stuff where I was writing that wasn't so much probably where I should have been musically. I always tried to be honest, because that's all I really knew how to do. Um, and so yeah, I'd say the music is 95% autobiographical. It's like you always want to have some room for things for interpretation and for room for other people to put their life story onto your songs, of course. But yeah, it's cathartic. It's definitely scary though. It's like, okay, if you don't like that, then that feels like you don't like me.
No pressure, right? No pressure at all.
um, but hey, it's all good.
Well, and you go through all of that, and now that leads you to where we are today. And what we're talking about is that debut EP, Angels. What was it before we even get into that? What was that? To see this journey come to fruition, and see the light at the end of the tunnel, so to speak. What's it been like to get to this point?
Yeah, it's been a long time coming. I think I really pushed off ever being a solo artist for a long time. I was in a bunch of different bands, like I said, sometimes as a drummer, sometimes as a singer. Uh, and I never wanted to be a solo artist. It felt like too much pressure. I felt like a band, you could kind of disperse the attention. Um, but, at the end of the day, I kind of knew in the back of my mind, like, this is where I was going. I feel like in life, that thing you're the most afraid of is like, you got to go there. That's that voice. That's like, you have to go there, man. Like, that's how it's been for me. So, like, the scary thing was to be a solo artist and put my story out there and my everything. And it felt like an inevitable mountain that I would have to climb. Um, but, like, it's been it's been a lot of fun, just kind of letting go and being like, this is me. There's something really, like I said, cathartic, or there's a release to it where you just so, I don't give an F. It's like, take it or leave it. So yeah, it's uh, it's been a journey. Let's say that.
Well, and that journey has led you to the debut EP, solo EP,
hmm
Angels. What was it like creating this project?
Yeah, so my former bandmate Chris, he was working with John Samuel, who is a writer producer who basically helped me write and produce this whole EP. And I had never met John Samuel, but Chris called me one day and was like, "Hey, like I've been working with this guy. I think you guys would be great to working together. Would you? I think like let's put you guys together and see what happens." And at this point, I hadn't really been writing for about a year. I just been kind of like jamming and spinning my wheels, and it was like pandemic. Kind of just figuring it out. And we went in with no expectation. Just like I don't know what this is going to be. Is it going to be anything? Let's just write songs. And so I think I hadn't done that in a long time, probably since I started with music, where when you start, everything is just fun, and you're just like, let's write a song. It's not like let's write this song because this thing is popular right now and hope that we can get it here. And it's like you cut all that stuff out. And so I didn't know what it was going to be. Was it going to be for me? Were we going to pitch it to another artist? Was it going to be a solo thing, a band thing? So that whole experience really just let us explore and experiment. And yeah, it was a lot of fun. Kind of no pressure, and working with John Samuel, like I always, with my former bandmate Chris, we would just write everything and produce everything ourselves, and we would do like 50 versions of a song. And John Samuel is like the opposite. It's like we go in, we write the song, and we record the song that day, and it's done. Like maybe there's been like one time where we go and we do some background vocals or something, but like pretty much like top to bottom, song's done. And that was like kind of the deal going in, was like I don't know what it's going to be, but like we're not going to do 50 versions of a song. We're just going to write it and let it go. And so that's what we did, and I kind of like that. Yeah, it's nice doing it that way.
Well, and it led you to where we are today.
Yeah.
That the EP is out. The first song you released to kind of showcase everything, your debut solo single, so to speak, was "One More Round." Why did you start with that song, and how did that song come to be yours?
Why we started with that song, I can't say there's some huge master plan reason why we did. I think we all felt really good about it. It felt kind of memorable and singable, and it came relatively easily, that day, which a lot of times those are the ones that feel the best. They kind of just feel like they already exist, and you just kind of pull it out of the air. Um, and what was the second part of your question?
Well, and how did that song come to be? Like, where did the inspiration for that one come to be?
Yeah, so we came into the studio that day, and I think we all were in agreement of like, I want to write something kind of happy and like celebratory. A couple of songs that we had written prior to that were more on the dark side. And yeah, I think we were just kind of like, let's just have some fun. Let's like, have one of those songs. And I always tend to write from kind of a dark place, and so it was like, let's not do that today. Let's just let's just have a light day. So yeah, that's kind of how it came to be, and we actually, yeah, there's some footage we'll release at some point of us like in the studio, kind of coming up with the song, which I watched, and I was remembering everything, and yeah, it's fun. It's fun to see how it came about, and it was like one more drink, one more. We couldn't find it, and then eventually we found one more round. Um, so yeah, it was a lot of fun.
Well, it's a fun song, and you talk about that kind of light and dark. This album EP kind of shows both sides of life. As we talked about at the very start, like it's
Yeah,
life. Life is got a lot of different things going on.
yeah.
One of the songs that's a little bit different than One More Round, and I think it kind of came out when you put out the album, was that everyone got to experience, was the Joneses. what was it like to put that song out and kind of have that different tone and a whole different feel than say One More Round and you know I know you I don't know and things like
Yeah,
that.
yeah. I mean, yeah, the Jones was the last song we wrote, I think, for the EP. Yeah, I mean, each one is different, you know. I think because we don't go in with too much of an agenda, you know. Like I said, for One More Round, we were like, let's try to write something happy, but we also don't force anything, you know. There's been times where we'll start on an idea, we'll work it for 45 minutes or so, and then we're like, this is just keep hitting walls. Let's just start something else. Um, but you know, at the end of the day, I think John Samuel is great about he knows me as a person, he knows me as an artist. I think he knows generally like what I want to say, you know, and he's really good about like we can just be having a conversation when we start and just kind of, oh hey, you said this one thing earlier, like that could be a lyric. Let's turn that into something. So you know, at the end of the day, it's like I want it to just reflect who I am, and who I am is like it's nothing special. It's like I go through things that everybody goes through, and I think you don't have to force it to try to be this one thing. Like I think humans understand that we all go through this range of crap and greatness and everything in between, and it's okay to sing about it, you know.
And technical difficulties.
Yeah, especially, right? It hasn't worked out today. Expect it to get worse. No, I'm just kidding. But sometimes.
I was gonna say whether that's in life or literally, you might
Yeah,
have technical difficulties.
yeah,
My favorite song from the EP, I love One More Round. It's fun. It's kind of got the fun guitar riff at the beginning that everyone can kind of, pick up or be like, ah, that sounds familiar.
yeah.
And is a song that, for everyone that's getting to listen to it for the first time, it'll be their first time hearing this, and that is Remind Me That I'm Still Alive. You tell me a little bit about that song because, like I said, it's just one thing that you do with your music is there's a rhythm to it, there's a beat to it, whether it's kind of a sad song, dark song, light song. There's at least a little bit, you can kind of feel the music. So,
Yeah.
can you tell me a little bit about Remind Me That I'm Still Alive?
That's just out of consideration for the listener. I'm like, if I'm going to tell you about all my sadness, I have to give at least give you a little beat to like get through it.
I
Um,
appreciate it.
yeah, no problem. No, yeah, that you know, we were working on that song, and we both, I think, just really felt what was happening. You know, the melodies that were popping out and the lyrics. It it came at the end of a session. Actually, we had recorded a song. We kind of finished quickly, and so we're like, let's just keep working on something. So we had started that song. And we came back and finished it a couple weeks later. But um, yeah, you know, I think we were talking about that those moments in your childhood that bring you back, whether you smell a smell or you hear a song and you get transported to this other chapter of your life. And we're just talking about that concept of, you know, life in general and how we all go through so many chapters, and how you can kind of encapsulate or bottle up an emotion of that time in your life. And a lot of times it's through music. And yeah, that was it. It was about, you know, this idea of driving in the car and, you know, trying to clear your head and go back to a better time. And um, yeah, just sometimes we all hit those rough spots, you know, and it's like you need a little reminder of like the good things, you know. I love that song for that reason. Not so much, not from like, oh, I love it, oh, it's a great song, but um, yeah, it's just a very personal song to me. So it was
No, like I
nice.
said, it was my favorite. I mean, the EP is fantastic, and you
Thank you.
know, it's one thing to get to record all this stuff. It's another to hit the stage and share these. So, what's been the best part about performing, whether it's these songs or just being up there on stage again and being able to
Yeah.
share music with people?
Yeah, so you know, I'll be honest with you. I haven't performed these like officially yet. I've been playing at some bars while I've been back here, and I'll sneak in an original from time to time. But I don't say, "Oh, this is my song." You know, I'm just playing a bunch of cover tunes, and I'm really excited for whenever like I actually play my first Chuckie Brown official show. Um, and I think, all of my experiences in cover bands and original bands, now like going out there as a solo artist, and having this opportunity to put the music out and have people hear it beforehand, it just really excites me, I don't feel really any pressure because I feel like the hard work is done. The hardest work for me is like writing the song and putting it out, and then playing it. It's like it's just the cherry on top. It's like, I don't know. You've already heard the songs if you're here, and if you haven't, here they are. It's just kind of playing is definitely the most fun part of music for me.
Well, and like you said, you haven't got to really perform, quote unquote, officially perform these songs. So I'll let you, maybe skirt this question a little bit.
Okay.
But, I always love to ask, what's your favorite drink? What you're drinking tonight? And as we get to the end, this is a fun one because whether it's your song or maybe a cover, I love hearing people's answers to this is what is your favorite song to perform right now?
To perform, man, hit me on the spot.
And then that's what I literally everyone's like, ooh, I
Yeah,
got so.
man. Well, I will say from like rehearsing the songs, I'll give you two answers. So I think as far as the originals, Best Night of My Life,
Hmm.
um, probably is the most fun one to like sing, just because it feels like, um, yeah, it's a story about like imagining what we're all going for, which is like
Mhm.
I'm just having a great time. All my friends are here; they're all having a great time. We're singing the songs. The songs happen to be my songs. Um, I don't know. It's just a fun song to sing. So I really like performing that one as far as my songs. And then as far as just in general, I would say King of Wishful Thinking. I do a little acoustic version of this. This is like a late 80s, early 90s pop song. Um, yeah, if you don't know it, check it out. King of Wishful Thinking by Go West. Great tune.
I love that. I love that. See, because you get answers like that, and I love to hear that. And as you're going down this whole path, obviously the EP is out now. I'm guessing there's going to be some shows at some point. Don't get yourself in trouble. I don't want to get yourself in trouble yet. But what else can folks expect from you this year? Is we're almost at the halfway point. You got music. So what else is coming down the pipe for you here in 2025?
Yeah, so I am actually going to LA on Friday. No, Saturday. Someday this weekend. I think Saturday or Sunday. It's all a blur.
Yeah.
So I'm going back to LA to do the second EP. We already
Mm.
we have about four or five songs already recorded. That it's more just a matter of like getting the songs that feel like they work together, and the ones that we don't pick, I guess we'll probably put on the album. We have an idea for what the concept is going to be for the second EP. So basically, hopefully, we'll get four or five songs next week, and then don't have a release date, but I'd imagine before the end of the year we'll get the second EP out, and hopefully some shows, and yeah, just keep the ball rolling.
I love that. A good tease to see what's coming down the pipeline. And we've talked about you having this eclectic mix of music that you love. And I never like to pigeonhole someone because it's music nowadays, genres cross so much and everything like that. But you're kind of like a rocker with a little bit of country and pop kind of mixed in there. So how did you end up with this kind of writing style and rhythm and who you became to be, with everything going on?
It's funny because it kind of happened naturally. Like I remember when I was trying to do something that was really pop back in like, 2012, 2013. We were coming out of like Dr. Luke, like all this very poppy production is trying to do that. And I remember a lot of people were like, you should move to Nashville. You kind of have more of a country vibe. And at the time, I was like, that's not what I'm really going for right now. Um, but and the rock stuff and the country stuff just kept coming through. And so at a certain point, which sounds so stupid now, but I was just like, well, why don't I just do that, you know? Um, and so it kind of like I didn't really have much choice about it. I felt like when I went through that journey, like I said, of finding myself, finding my voice, finding my perspective, I felt like the way that I wrote songs was tended to be kind of more in the country vein, and I just had those rock roots from being a drummer and everything, and so it's like, how can I blend these? And here we are.
Hey, Nick, you're not the only one that has come to that conclusion. I've had a few folks on the show that are like, I'm not a country guy, but boy, everything I wrote and when sang, that's what it was, and that's where I'm at. And sometimes that's just where it takes you. But it took you into a place where Chucky, the Angels EP is fantastic. It's a lot of fun, a lot of different emotions on it, folks. If you haven't yet, highly recommend you checking it out. And Chucky, thanks for sharing your story and a drink with me and putting up with a few technical difficulties.
Hey man, Jonathan, thanks so much. Pleasure to join you for a drink, and yeah, appreciate your time, and we'll talk to you again.
I appreciate it, man.